بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In this video, I'm going to provide the solution for assignment number 3, the distance sensor class. Okay, so in this assignment, we would like to implement an object-oriented program to represent a distance sensor class. And a distance sensor is a small device that is able to estimate the distance to an object. An example of distance sensor is shown in the figure below, and let's go to this figure. Next, start assignment here. Okay, so basically this is the image of a distance sensor. It's a device that is used in order to estimate. It's a similar thing that you find in your car. You know, the laser sensor that you found in the rear of the car tells you what is the distance to an obstacle. So when you actually go backward, you don't hit against the wall or something. So it gives you some kind of prevention for collisions. Okay. So we will start with the distance sensor class. A distance object is characterized by its ID and its range. It is characterized by a maximum range, which is a constant that represents the maximum readable range from the sensor. And also mean range, so this is mean. I need to correct this one, is the constant that represents the minimum readable range. So basically, a sensor gives you a distance, and it has certain bounds for the minimum range and the maximum range. For example, some sensors cannot see more than 5 meters. Some others cannot see farther than 10 meters or 20 meters. Okay, so we need to have the maximum range and also the minimum range. Some sensors cannot see closer than 50 centimeters. So this is a characteristic of the sensor. And by the way, they are constant. I had a lot of questions about how we can initialize this constant, whether it should be initialized in the attributes section or in the constructor. So basically here we're going to initialize this in the constructor. So let's start NetBeans.
Sir,
Yeah.
I don't get why we should initialize it in a constructor if it's a constant. Like, should we not just initialize outside?
Okay, so I'm going to respond to you. Okay, no problem. That is a good question. For some reason it's not. Okay. Let me open this again. So I'm going to create a new package. So please try to follow me, because in the exam, I would like that you download the previous GIT Hub package and then create a new package inside. So don't create a new project. Why? Because this helps you to have all the code that we have done before. So in case you need, for example, a reminder or to know the syntax, you can go to the previous code. Okay? So here I'm going to create a new package. I'm going to call it previous for previous exam .quiz 01, and this one is fall. I think it's fall 2016, or I don't remember well. Okay, so anyway, and here we will create a class that is called distance sensor. So let's start by the ID and the range. That is simple. We have private, so we need to use private for data hiding and encapsulation. String ID and private. So the range is double. Okay, and what do we have also? Yes, we have max range and mean range. Is there any other mouse? I think this one has, I don't know. Okay, so we have private, final, double, max range. And in Java, usually we write the constant as capital letter. Okay, so this is the convention. Private final. Yes, no problem, because we need to initialize this one. Final double mean range. And then we will do a constructor that is public distance sensor, and here we will have string id, string double range, and we have double max range and double mean range. So what we will do here, we will use set id for id and set range for range. Okay, now we need to initialize. Of course, we need to create the set and get method. We're going to do that just later. But now the question is, how should we initialize the max range and the mean range? So some of your students want to do something like this. For example, let's put here 5.0 and let's put here, for example, 0.2. Okay, so this is correct from programming point of view, but it's not correct from semantic point of view. Why? Because if we do like this, we're going to assume that every sensor in the world will have a maximum range of 5 and a minimum range of 0.2. Is this true? No, because you can find some sensors that would have longer maximum range or shorter maximum range. It depends on the quality of the sensor. So this is why it doesn't make sense in this particular case to initialize the constant in the attribute section here, but rather we can do that inside the constructor. So what we can do, one moment I will come to you. Okay, so maximum range is equal to max range, which will be provided by, okay, the constructor, and mean range equal mean range will be provided by the constructor. Yes?
So sir, if the value changes, then why is it a constant?
Okay, if the value changes, so the value doesn't change.
It does.
Where does it change?
You said so. Like different sensors can have different
But
ranges.
it's a constant for one sensor, for an object. So for example, now if I have initialized this to maximum range, I'm not able to change it anywhere else in the program. For example, here if you have any method, okay, void any method, for example, okay, and you want to change max range, so just assign it to another value for the same sensor. It's not possible because this is constant. Okay, it's not a constant for the class. It is a constant for the object, and this constant might be different from one object to another. Okay, if you make this a constant as a class, so all the objects will share the same value. But this is not correct. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes. So that's why we need to initialize the value max range and mean range inside the full argument constructor, like this.
Doctor, the attributes max range and min range, why don't we write static?
Where?
And the private final double, shouldn't we write static?
We cannot make it static because if you do static like this, you cannot change it here in the constructor. So in this case, it becomes a class variable. All the objects would have the same value. Okay? But in our case, it is a constant for the object. Okay? So it is a constant for the object. Okay. So let's move forward. If the maximum range is equal to 5 meters, then the range cannot exceed the value. So we're going to use the maximum range and the minimum range for data validation, okay, for the range attribute. Okay, let's now do the get and set method for the others. Public string get ID, and then we return the ID. And then public void set ID string ID. We don't have any data validation here. This dot ID is equal to ID. Now public get range return range, and here we have to put double, and here we have to put public void set range and then double range. So now we have to do data validation. How to make the data validation in this case? If what? Range is greater than max range. And so yeah, it must be smaller. Let's be smaller or equal. And here, if range is greater or equal to minimum range. So in this case, it is valid. In this case, we will do this dot range is equal to range. Else, throw new illegal argument exception. Range must be within bounds. Is it clear?
Yes, but how the program know that the maximum range is 5 and the minimum range is 0.2?
I didn't specify here. This was just an example. I say this means if,
Okay.
just an example. It doesn't mean it's equal to that one.
Since it specifies here that range cannot be bigger than max range, why do we write in the if condition that it is also in the question here it says range cannot be bigger than max range, right?
Mm-hmm.
So shouldn't we put the restriction to range bigger than max range, throw new legal argument exception?
This is what we did here.
Yeah, but on the right one, range bigger than or equal.
No, else. This is else. Else, it means when it is bigger than max range and smaller than mean range. So the class distance sensor has one full argument constructor, one constructor with only the ID as parameter, where the default range is 0, and the copy constructor. Okay, so we will have another constructor on the top, which has only the ID, public distance sensor, string ID. So let's use the keyword this here. This ID, this is 0.0 for the range. Okay, and here we can put any value. So any value for, it didn't specify. Okay, it didn't specify here. So I'm going just to put any value. And a copy constructor, one moment please. And the copy constructor, public. So tell me how I should do the copy constructor. What I should put here?
Distance sensor D.
Distance sensor D. And I can use this ds.id, ds.range, ds.max range, and ds.mean range. So pay attention that when I ask you to do more than one constructor, so basically I will expect, even if I don't say this, I will expect that you use the keyword this to call the full argument constructor. Okay, so you may have lower grades if you don't use the keyword this. Yes.
I didn't understand why we put ID with 0.0 and 5.0.
Here?
Yes.
just chosen values. I can put different values because it was not specified. If you want to put, for example, here 7.0 and 0.3, no problem. Okay. Because it was not specified, so I put any value. Okay. Any question? The string representation of the distance sensor class is as easy in this example. So here I'm going to copy, it looks that it has some kind of formatting. This is called JSON formatting. So you can just copy the same string like this and copy it into the toString method as I'm going to show. Look, now you can do public string toString, and toString, I remind that it provides a string representation to the class, to the object, and here I will return string dot format. I put the code. Look, now I'm going just to paste the same string. In NetBeans is going to auto format because when you have quotations like this, you have to make this backslash. Okay, otherwise it's going to interrupt the quotation of the string. And then we will change. So this will be %d or %s for the ID. This one will be %point to f, and this one will be %point to f, and this one will be %point to f. Okay, and of course we have to add the ID, the range, the max range, and the mean range. Is it clear until now? So this is the class distance sensor.
I have two questions. What if we write override before the toString method?
Yes, you can write override. Okay, because we are going to override the existing toString method. So it's optional to write it. That's possible.
Second thing, when we wrote point to f, what happens if we write point 1f instead? Because
It's going to be only one floating point after the dot, decimal. So how many decimals do you want to have?
so
1 decimal, 2 decimals, 3. Now I want to make 2 decimals. But if you want to make 3 decimals, you put 0.3f. Yes?
The toString block, why you put, or why this keyword
This dot ID, like this, it's possible. But now there is no confusion. Whether you write ID or this dot ID is going to be the same thing.
to make sure?
Yeah, here there is a confusion. So if I don't put this, it's going to be the parameter. But here there is no confusion about. So if you put ID or this dot ID is going to be the same thing. Yes. Now implement the class distance sensor and all its methods and attributes using data hiding and encapsulation. So we've already done this. This is simple. And now the second question about sensor grid. And okay, here we have two-dimensional array. So it is an opportunity to review a little bit two-dimensional arrays. And just let me make a review. Two-dimensional array is like a matrix. So if we consider Excel here, okay, so we can have two-dimensional arrays, something similar to this picture. And we have some rows. So this is row number 0, index 0. This is row index 1. This is row index 2. This is row index 3. And this is row index 4. And also we have columns. So this is B is a column. Okay, so this is a column at index 0. And this is the column at index 1. This is a column at index 2, and so on. So every element in the two-dimensional array is referenced by the index of the row and index of the column. So for example, this element is indexed by 0, 0. If I take this element, for example, here, it is referenced by 3, 1. Okay, so this is all you need to know about two-dimensional arrays, okay, of course. And then you can store elements, you can change the values by accessing every element and writing the value that you want, okay, depending on its type.
The first dimension array for the rows and the second for the columns.
Yes. Okay, so what we will do here, no. So a sensor grid class is characterized by a matrix of a distance sensor object named sensors. So let's do this. We're going to create a grid sensor. You know what does it mean, grid? Yeah, grid is something like this. You know, basically a grid, something similar to this one. Yeah. So what is the attribute here? You have private sensor distance, and it has a two-dimensional array, grid, and we will call it sensors.
Distance is opposite, right?
Yes, distance sensor. So now this is two-dimensional array of distance sensor objects. Let's continue. It is also characterized by a grid length and a grid width. Grid length is the number of rows, and grid width is the number of columns. Okay, so let me do that. So every time you read an information, try just to write it here. Private int grid length. Okay, and you can here write number of rows, and private int grid width, and here it's number of columns. We move forward. It has a full argument constructor, a copy constructor, and a default constructor. Okay, so full argument constructor, public sensor grid, grid length, int grid width, and distance sensors. So we'll do the same thing.
Dr. Shouldn't we write in the same order we wrote in the...
No problem. You can, yes. I just choose this order. Okay. So here we use set grid length, set grid width, and set distance sensor or set sensors. Of course, I need to make all of these get and set method public distance sensor get sensors, return sensors, public void set sensors. Okay, I'm going now to copy this one here, sensors, this dot sensors equal sensors, and we will do the same public int get grid length, return grid length, and public void set grid length int okay grid length GL. What's going wrong here? Okay. And finally, we will do the same as this method. And it's going to be width. Okay. So we need to make also a copy constructor, public sensor grid. So what will be here the parameter? Sensor grid SG. And we use this SG dot get length, SG dot get width, and SG dot get sensors.
And that's in the copy constructor. That's fine if we say sg dot length, right? No need for the get method.
Mm-hmm.
In the copy constructor, we can say sg dot grid length.
Yes. Yes. And a default constructor, public sensor grid, we can just put it empty here. We didn't specify any particular default values. Let's move forward. We have now the method add, the method remove, and the method max. So three methods here. It did not specify toString method, right? So I'm going to print all of them. Public void add. Okay. So what we will do? We have a distance sensor S we want to add into the ETH and G element. No. It's a two-dimensional array. What do we have? We have sensors I, J equal S. That's all. Okay. So we're going to put the sensor S into the element. So like we have something, imagine that this is the grid. We want to add the sensor S, for example, at index 3, 1. So we will add it here. Okay? This is a grid of sensors. We'll add it here.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you go up?
Here?
Yes. Here in your answer, you have added you have made a method that takes.
Okay, so let's continue.
Tell Max.
Yeah. So now we would like to remove. How to remove? Remove int I int G. So how can we do that here? We can do sensors I G equal null. So if I put it to null, it means there is no sensor inside. Just becomes a null object. Okay? And max, you want to find the maximum range. Max, return the maximum range of all sensors. That is simple. We will do double max equal -1, 1.0, and we will do for statements, so nested loops for int I equal to 0, I smaller than what? Sensors dot length. So this gives the number of rows. Okay, and I plus plus, and inside we will do a for statement for the G, for int G equals 0, G smaller than sensors. We can put at index I dot length and G plus plus, and here we will do if max is greater than sensors I G dot get range. We do the assignment max equal if max is smaller. If max is smaller than this one, we'll do that. Okay. Finally, return. Is this clear?
After the start of the second for loop, why didn't we say I dot width?
There is no dot width.
Oh, we made the attributes start. Wasn't
Yeah, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's possible.
What do you mean by get range? Dot get range.
Get range. So we're going to compare with the range. We want to find the maximum range. So this is a sensor, and the sensor has a range. صح ولا؟ Okay. So every time I get the range of the sensor and I compare with max. Okay, and finally I will get the maximum value. This is the typical way on how to find the maximum into an array or two-dimensional array. I think you did this in CS101.
Yes.
You should have done this.
If we put -1 without 0, that's okay.
Sorry?
If we put double max equals just -1 without 0.
Yeah, it's possible, yes. Just it's because of double. So now we have completed the second class, sensor grid. And finally, we have the sensor test class. Write a test program, sensor test, that create a sensor grid with 3 by 3 matrix. Sensor ID are from 1 to 9. All sensors have the maximum range of 5 meters. Set random distances to this sensor. Print the max. Okay. So now we will do a third class, sensor test. And this one will have a main function because we will execute it. So we will have public static void main string args. We will create a sensor grid sg equal new, it's 3 by 3. What is the constructor here? Yeah, the width and length. So we need to add, because here we have used the full argument constructor. This is why I have created only with width and length, because sometimes I don't have the sensors itself. So what I will do, I'm going to create a constructor with only width and length. And this one will be equal sensors equal new distance sensor, and here we have grid length, and here we have grid width. So it is created. And then what we will do? What is the question? Sensor ID from 1 to 9. Okay, we can make for int I equal to 0. So I can take this for loop here. I will make an assignment for. So how to, this is SG dot get length, and this one is SG dot get width, and here we will have SG dot get sensors. Now we have composition, we have SG object, and inside of which we have sensors IG dot set ID equal to we can make ID counter. So let me make ID counter. It will ID counter will start from 1, and then every time what's the problem? It's a string. Okay, we can convert this to string. I think I can put it inside. No. We need to convert this to, yeah. Yeah, plus quotation, yes, we can do that. The simplest way.
After it says.
Plus quotation, yes. Plus. So this is the ID. Okay, and then we have to increase by 1. ID
Add nothing.
counter equal ID counter plus 1. Then all sensors must have the maximum range of 5 meters. So we can do SG dot. How to set the maximum range here? Okay, yes. So we have to create a new sensor. So equal new distance sensor. How did you do that? So we have the ID here. The range is any value. The maximum range is 5.0. And the other one we can put any value. So actually we don't need to do that. Okay, we can just create a new sensor inside every element. Did you understand this line? So this is the sensors matrix, صح ولا لا? So the element at IG will be equal to a new sensor distance. And the distance sensor will have an ID counter from 1 to 9. The value of the range is 0. The maximum range is 5. And this is just the value of minimum range.
So to put this value into every index.
Yes. And then set the random distances. We can do dot set range math dot random, مثلا multiplied by 3 or multiplied by max range 5.0. Okay, and finally to print the maximum value, we can use sg dot max. We can do s out max equal plus sg dot max. Is it clear?
There's one thing I didn't understand. What did ID counter do